Hello, welcome back to Sunflower Cottage Crochet. This is Sarah, and today is a pattern tutorial for our Richard wrist warmers. So as you can see, I have the pattern here in front of me and some of the items you're going to need. So the way our patterns work is we have our cover page and the picture so you can see exactly what it is we're going to be working on. So here's the materials list. You can use any size yarn for this, but you'll need to keep in mind that thinner yarn will use more and thicker yarn will use less. So around 110 yards of a 4-weight yarn with no cuff, a little bit more than that to have a cuff. And what we're talking about with cuff and no cuff, see, here's one that I made up, and this is just exactly how simple it is. This one, I don't really need a cuff because it's pretty long, but I am going to show you the same length, adding a cuff onto it. And you can make this as short or as long as you want. And to show you how to do that, we're going to look at this. The gauge isn't important because you can make it as big as you want or small as you want. Helen actually did this one. So her finished size gloves were 8 1/4 inch tall and 4 inches wide and fit a medium man's hand. And then this tells you all the abbreviations and things you need to know. Now you know that's kind of how our patterns work. And the pattern notes say that it's written in US terms and the chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch. And you'll need to know the measurements for your hand sizing. Now basically you're talking about 4 inches across for a regular knuckle size, 3 to 4 inches. And so basically if you have 4 inches here that you measure, you're going to need a total of 8 inches because you're going to just crochet up a rectangle. And at that point you then will mark where your thumb holes are going to be and sew up and around those. So here's basically what you need. You'll want some stitch markers of some kind. Doesn't have to be these, you can use yarn, but stitch markers, your hook obviously that fits the yarn, a pair of scissors, and a yarn needle or darning needle, whatever you want to call it. So the first thing is, I'm going to put these out of the way. The pattern says that you'll need to, you can either chain in multiples of 2 until you get the desired length of the wrist warmer minus 1.5 inches. This is for where the cuff is going to be. And then chain an additional 1. And then you're going to single crochet in the second chain from the hook and then each stitch across. Or you can foundation single crochet in multiples of 2 until you get the desired length minus 1.5 inches for the cuff if you're doing the cuff. Today I'm going to be using, and I'm probably going to butcher this, Schackenmeyer. It's lovely German name, Merino Extra Fine 120. It is a DK and I'm using a 4.5 mil hook to do it. And that's what I made this one out of. And it is a really, really super awesome yarn, to be completely honest. I got it on sale at Mary Maxim for like, I don't know, $1 something a ball. And there's quite a bit in here. Let's see. 131 yards. I basically just use most of a ball to make one glove. So, and these also are really cool because right here it says easy start. It like finds the center pole for you. And so yeah, you just unhook all this and it's got that lovely center pole. I love that. Like, I wish all yarn companies did that. That would be nice. Okay, moving on from that. So I'm gonna make my slip knot. Never mind the shaky nervous hands. You guys know, if you've been here before, you know by now. Okay, I'm gonna do foundation single crochet row. So I'm gonna chain 2, and we have a video on this, so I'm not gonna go extremely slow for that. And now I am gonna zoom in. Okay, so I chained 2, and then I inserted, and this is gonna be the same all the way down, into the last loop, sorry, and pulled up a loop, and then I'm going to chain 1, which creates the chain row, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull through 2, which makes a single crochet. So you're making both at the same time. So to work the next one, you need to find the 2 loops. This yarn, I apologize, probably is a little hard to see because it is a bit darker. Again, alternatively, you can just chain up in multiples of 2 and then add an additional chain at the end. And do that for the length you desire. If you want to add a cuff, leave off about 1.5 inches of your work so that you can have a cuff. If you don't want a cuff, just go for the desired length. And I'm just going to do a swatch with you here on this video, and then I will meet you back when I have enough to kind of show you how to work the stitch pattern. I'll see you in just a moment. Okay, so I've got my foundation single crochet of 20. It's probably pretty close to what you've done, especially if you're leaving off the 1.5 inches. So you're really just kind of measuring from like these knuckles down to about here if you're going to add a cuff. If you're not, then it needs to be further down. But no matter what you did, multiples of 2, and if you did a chain instead of a foundation single crochet row, and add an extra 1, and that will be your starting chain. So we're doing the crunch stitch, and I'm going to chain up 1 and turn, because I've done my first row of single crochet basically. So remember, the pattern was to chain up in multiples of 2, add an extra chain at the end when you reach the length you want, and then single crochet across. So now we're at that point. We're going to chain 1 and turn. And now you can either do, the pattern says to do an alternate chain 2, which is a single crochet and a chain. I don't bother with that because that basically makes a half double crochet. I'm just going to go right in and do a half double crochet. That's just me. I prefer to do that. And in the next stitch, you're going to slip stitch. Well, maybe. And in the next one, we're going to half double crochet. And then in the next one, we're going to slip stitch. And then half double and slip. Whoops, slip, thank you. And then half double and slip. Half double and slip. And half double, and slip. You would not believe how much harder it is to crochet on camera. You're just not in your normal position. It's not that comfortable. And then you realize there's going to be lots of people watching what you're doing. Okay. So I'm just going to work this with you on camera to the end, doing a half double in one stitch and a slip stitch in the next, and that's what makes the crunch stitch. And then you're going to end with a slip, and then you chain 1 and turn, and you can see there's a really neat looking texture to that stitch. I'll grab some more yarn here. And now this is the repeat row forever. You're going to start with a half double and then go put a slip stitch in the top of the half double from the previous row, and then you're going to half double in the slip stitch from the previous row and put a slip stitch in the half double from the previous row. So you're putting opposite stitches onto the previous row stitches, but it will always work out where you start out with a half double and end with a slip stitch, and then when you chain 1 and turn, you're going to start out with a half double and then you're going to end with the slip stitch. So every row repeat is going to be exactly the same. Start out with the half double, end with a slip stitch. Okay, and I'm going to finish this row with you, and then I want you to work as many rows as you need to get the complete width of your fingerless glove, and I will meet you back up when I have reached that with mine. But first, here's what it's going to look like so far. And there is no right or wrong side. It's completely reversible. So you keep crocheting back and forth as many rows as you need to fit the width twice of your hand. And I will meet you back here and I will show you how to figure out where to put the thumb hole, and we will then work on the ribbing together. So I'll see you here in just a moment. Okay, so after like 30 minutes or so, I'm back and I worked this off camera obviously. And this is where we now are width-wise where we need to be. So we actually turned the project so that our foundation row is on either end, doesn't really matter. And then we're going to start measuring to make sure it's going to fit. And I made mine long enough to be without the cuff, but I'm still going to work the cuff on it so you can see how to do that. So what we're going to do is, and this is actually the easiest way to do it, we do have figure photos on how to figure out where to put your thumb hole and using stitch markers to obviously mark the area. So if I want this to come across these knuckles, okay, my thumb is here. It's easier to do it this way than to try and fold it and do it this way. So I've done it both ways and this is just so much easier. So I'm gonna put my hand here about where I feel like it should be, and then right in the crook of your thumb, we're gonna mark. I didn't grab both sides. I just wanted to mark one, and then you don't want to include all this because it's going to be in the glove. But you do want to make sure you give enough room for your thumb to get through. So I'm measuring on this other side. I hope you can see that. Yeah, okay. So your thumb hole doesn't need to be ginormous, you know. And mine kind of is right in the middle. Some people it will be way up here. Some people it will be way down here. Depends on how much of your hand you want to cover. It's really up to you as to where you want it to be. I like this to come right across these knuckles so that it's going to be over here. So now, with your yarn still attached, and at this point I also recommend lining up your stitches and then going ahead, I'm going to zoom back in, going ahead and grabbing both edges and pinching off with your stitch markers. Okay. All right. So now with your yarn you have not fastened off, you can get it back on the hook. Sorry. And now you're going to slip stitch join all the way down. You can go through 1 loop, 4 loops, you know, it's kind of up to you how you like to slip stitch join. We have a video on that too if you're not that familiar with it and you want more instruction. I'll be sure to try and remember to put a link in the description box below. Okay, so again, I'm just going to slip stitch my way down to the thumb hole. My daughter is all about Christmas right now. She's a 4-year-old. And so yeah, you might be hearing her in the background. Okay, so now I am at this first ring. I'm gonna take that off and I'm gonna pick a side. I'll probably just go down this side. And now you're just going to slip stitch around one side, whichever side you prefer, of the thumb hole. Until you get to the other stitch marker, which is right here, and I'm going to do this one more spot here. Take that off. And now you're going to go back through both sides, both edges. And again, how you choose to go through the loops is up to you. I'm just doing whatever seems to be easiest for my hook. And by the way, if you are curious, this is a Furls Streamline Swirl hook. Cafe something or other, and it's a 4.5. So as of this moment, we do not have a Furls like discount code, but we do have an affiliate link, which I can put below. It doesn't cost you any extra, but it does help support us. Okay. All right, so here we go. Now we're at the end, and you can trim off, maybe, and you can weave in your ends, which I will now show you how to do. But first, let's see. And again, you can wear this on any side. There we go, that's the right. There we go. So now we're gonna weave in these ends, and then we'll turn it the correct side out so that your seams are not showing. Now, I like to weave in ends going 3 directions, just to make sure that it is completely sewn in and hopefully won't be popping back out. So I went down, now I'm gonna pick a slightly different loop and come back up through and pick a slightly different loop and go back down. Then I'm going to snip that off. So that was 3 directions, down, up, down. And again on this side, I'll do it one more time on camera so you can see how I like to weave in ends. Now this is if you aren't going to add a cuff. All right. And there it is. Okay, so now I'm going to turn this the correct side out so we don't see the seam. And there it is, the thumb hole and everything. Okay. There you go. And this length is great for just leaving it, but if you do like really long, you can do the full length and add a cuff, or you can just, like it says, to leave 1.5 inches and then not worry, and then add the cuff, excuse me. Okay, so if you're doing a cuff, you don't fasten off. But because I wanted to show you how to weave in the ends, and then what it would look like if I just fastened off and finished it from there, we did that. Otherwise, you would not fasten off. You would just keep going. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to re-add yarn though to show you how to work the cup. So it says, single crochet an even number of stitches evenly around the bottom of the glove. So I'm going to start at the seam here and reattach yarn. Again, if you're going to work the cuff to start with, don't fasten off. All right, so now I'm just going to chain 1, well, single crochet right there, and then single crochet evenly around. One single crochet for each row works really well. If you crochet it too few, then it's going to make the cuff smaller for your hand to get into. If you do too many, it will leave it kind of ruffly. So evenly is best. 1 for each row, if you can kind of spot it. If not, just eyeball it. That's pretty much what I'm doing right now, is just eyeballing. Okay, we're just going to keep single crocheting as evenly as we can all the way around. And I am burying this yarn you can do that, or you can leave it and weave it. I normally bury some and then finish the weaving in after. So now at this point I would just tuck that away so I can go back the other direction with it to finish weaving it in and make sure that it's locked in. It caught on my ring again. Don't you just love that? I don't normally crochet with rings on, but for video purposes I have to have the bling. Alright, I know I'm getting close to the end here. And I happened to grab the flippy floppy end of the ball instead of the center pole, so that kind of is annoying, but whatever. It feels like far too many in that one spot. There we go. Okay, here we are back at the beginning, and that was our fasten off point there earlier. So now I'm just going to join with a slip stitch. Now we're going to chain 3, which counts as a double crochet, and then you're going to double crochet in each of the other stitches around. Now let me tell you something. A chain 3 is kind of annoying because gap. Some people do the alt chain 3 or alt DC, which is a single crochet and a chain 2. I don't like that either. I just chain 1 and go right into making the double crochet, which is basically what they call a standing double crochet. It is a little thicker, but this leaning section here is the top, and I am so sorry that this yarn is so dark, but there it is. All right, so now you're going to double crochet all the way around in each stitch. You go ahead and do that, and I will meet you back at the end, and I'll show you how to join to the standing DC, which is the same as joining to a regular DC, but I want to make sure you can see those loops. All right, so I will meet you back at the end right before we join. Okay, so I am all the way back to the end, and this is where my chain 1 came out of, so I'm not going to crochet into that. But here's the 2 loops that we need to work into, and it's the top of that very first standing double crochet, and I hope that that gives you a slightly better view on where that is. And I'm just going to slip stitch to join and chain 1, and now this is going to be very dependent on you, the person, and how long or short you want your cuff to be. But the next row is a front post DC double crochet around, and now remember what I told you, this right here is the chain 1, and that's the standing DC. So we're gonna go front post around that just straight away. So you've chained 1, and then you're gonna front post, and now you're gonna back post around the next one. Oh, I lost my loop, or my yarn over. I hate that. Back post is annoying. I mean, for real. All right, and then front post around the next, and back post around the next. Whoops. Okay, so we also have videos on both front and back post double crochets, and I will try to remember to link those in the video description box below, so you can check those for reference if you need to. Okay, so front post, back post, front post, back post, all the way around, and then you're going to continue to do that ribbing for a total of 5. you'll have 5 rounds total. So you'll have the first round is a single crochet, the second round is a double, the third round is the front and back post, and the fourth round and the fifth round is a repeat of the front and back post rounds. So you'll have a total of 3 front and back post rounds. This angle is so hard for back post. Okay, so I'm gonna work a few more on camera with you, maybe. And then I will meet you back at the end. It's all in how you twist the hook, I guess. I'll work one more back post here so you can kind of see how either not to do it or how to do it. All right, I'm gonna finish up and then I will meet you back at the end. Okay, I'm all the way back. I have not joined yet. Remember, hopefully you can kind of see that. Right here is the chain 1 where my right thumb is, and my left thumb is up here where the 2 loops are that you need to go into to join if you're doing the standing double crochets or front post and whatever. Okay, so now we have this much ribbing done. It calls for 2 more rounds of exactly the same. So you match the posts. So we're going to chain 1, and remember that this little bit here is a chain 1, but this right here that looks like ribbing is where we're going to do our front post. So front post around the front post, back post around the back post. And it seems like once you get the back posts made, they're a little easier to do. I'll do a few on camera with you, and then I will meet you back at the end of the final round, which is one more after this one, and we will fasten off. And you can weave in your ends, and then you will have a completed wrist warmer. Okay, so I'm going to keep working around, and I will meet you at the end of round 5, which is one more after this one, and then we'll fasten off. Okay, so I've made it all the way back around, and now I'm going to join to the top of that first front post double crochet, and I will go ahead and snip off. I'm not going to weave in any ends just yet because I just want to get it over here and show you. So now I'm going to zoom out a little and show you the difference. Now remember that I made this one long enough to be without a cuff, but honestly it's up to you however long you want to make it, or short, or whatever works for you. Find my thumb hole. Here it is on, and it's actually a pretty nice length to have it quite long, but again, it's up to the individual. Get my other one on here. So now you can kind of see how it looks both ways. The tops are going to be the same. There we go. So this is a unisex pattern. It makes a great last minute gift and stocking stuffer for both men and women. You can even make a his and hers, you know, red and pink, or blue and bluer, or however you want to do it. Rainbow, it doesn't matter. It's entirely up to you. Now again, the yarn I used was Jack & Meyer Merino Extra Fine 120. I believe it is a virgin wool, 100%. And it looks like I can machine wash and dry these. I believe they're a superwash merino, or not merino, but virgin wool. Anyway, it feels amazing. It is super duper soft, like a regular acrylic-y yarn, and it's squishy and already warm. So because I kind of actually like the length on this, I may go ahead and add a cuff to this one. But normally, again, you would leave off about 1.5 inches, so just below your thumb. Leave that off, and that will be worked in with this. And it will be a more this length, but with a cuff. So again, here they are. I know it's hard to get them all in the camera. I hope that this tutorial was helpful, and be sure to grab the pattern and follow along as you crochet with me. I had fun. I hope you did too. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.